name's Rachel Ward. I go to UNCW. I'm a freshman studying nursing. My question would be, how do you be bold in your faith while still respecting the legalities of being a professor and honoring different people's worldviews?
Welcome, everybody, to Meet the Prof. Hey there, I'm Shane Hartley, and this is a podcast where we interview Christian professors with the goal of encouraging Christ-centered conversations on the college campus. And we're so glad you're with us. Thanks for joining us. And today we have a treat. I'm going to interview Dr. Charles Kemp. Charles is an associate professor of teacher education at Shawnee State University in Ohio. He's also program coordinator and intervention specialist in the licensure program in their School of Education. So, Charles, welcome to Meet the Prof. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thanks. It's a Friday. It's fall break. It's good.
I love Fridays, and especially fall break. Appreciate you spending time with us on your fall break. So, one thing that you shared on meettheprof.com is that you are really into whodunit fictions. And when I was a kid, I got into Hardy Boys books and was just hooked. How did you get into whodunit fiction?
So I think thinking back, as we would prepare to go to the beach, my wife would head to the library and she'd just check out about 8 or 10 books. Most of them were fiction, obviously, and most of them were crime solving or whodunit type, literature. And I found a couple authors that I enjoy, and so we just keep checking out their books anytime we head on any kind of an extended break. And it just it's a fun way to kind of disengage from regular life, so to speak, but also kind of begin thinking, can I solve this and figure it out before I get to the end? So it's been fun.
So I started with these books as a kid, and then I haven't read anything like that in years. And you started later. And so just hearing you say that makes me think I would probably enjoy these kind of books more because I do enjoy puzzles. I'll sit and do puzzles.
Oh.
Well, Charles, that we always like to start with asking something of what's an embarrassing moment you ever had, either as a professor or when you were a college student.
So it happened just 2 days ago, actually.
No.
We were having some class discussion, and I was interacting with one of my students and referred to another student in class by the wrong name. To which the student with which I was interacting kind of looked at me with a puzzled look and then realized, oh, that's just Dr. Kemp and his poor memory of what student names are. And she just went right on. And it didn't hit me until this morning. I thought, oh, I referred to that student by the wrong name. So I quickly sent an email and sent my apology. So it happens. I'm getting old.
Yeah. No, you get an A for trying. A lot of professors don't even try to remember their students' names. So, I'm really interested, Charles, in some of your early spiritual journey. So I loved hearing on Meet the Prof that you came to Christ early. I think you said, were you 5 years old?
Right.
So I was wondering, as you were growing up as a young Christian, if you can tell us some about what that journey was like for you. And especially, were there any moments or events that were life-changing for you, times where you really had to learn to trust God?
So while I was saved at a young age, life was very appealing. I was fearful enough of my father to not get involved in too much crazy stuff as a kid. And I had enough fear of God in kind of a good way, I think. More of a reverence for him. And so while I wanted to get involved in some of, not so healthy lifestyles as a teenager, I didn't. But also didn't feel like I fit in. And it really wasn't until I got away to Bible college. I knew I wanted to be a missionary from a young age. My parents had missionaries in the home often. I joked growing up, I think missionaries slept in my bed more than I did. I slept on the couch, and that's no complaint. I loved it because we heard stories of what was going on mostly in South America growing up, and the gospel was just penetrating some of those areas. Lives were being changed and things. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't going to college. I was just going to go be a missionary. I'd take whatever training I needed and get to the mission field. Part of that training was Bible school, and it was during those days that I really came to terms with, if this is going to be my life, I've got to get serious about my faith and knowing what it means to be a Christ follower. I'm still growing, almost 50 years later, still growing. But yeah, it was during those days that I really came to the place to say, I've got to get serious about this.
Part of your journey it's exciting to read, like you worked as a teacher to missionary kids in West Africa. You came back, you were a high school principal, like middle school principal, then administrator and all. And then it led you to getting your PhD and being a professor now. So how did you see God's hand work in all of that journey?
I guess having been a pretty poor student coming through elementary,
Really?
coming through elementary and high school, I was a C student at best, with lots of work, and
You're not alone with that. I've heard other professors say that themselves.
so the fact that I am where I am right now is just surprising to me on a regular basis. Looking back, seeing how God worked and kind of carved out that road for my life, intersected my life with key people who made things possible for me. Sometimes that was funding for college. Sometimes it was a job opportunity that I didn't even know existed. I spent about 10 years as a special ed supervisor at a small city school system, and one day I came home and told my wife, I don't want to do management the rest of my career. And she said, what will you do? And I said, well, I'll go back to the classroom, be a classroom teacher. And she's like, kids have kind of changed since you've been at central office. I'm not sure that's going to be a good place for you. I said, well, I'll go to the university classroom then. And she said, well, what will that take? And I said, a doctorate. And she's like, when do you start? I'm like, oh, wow. And even then, like, God opened doors, and I worked full time, like many folks that are working through grad school and even post grad, working full time, family responsibilities, ministry at church, and those kinds of things, and just pushed through my doc program particularly. And had a wonderful dissertation chair that believed in my research and wanted me to get through as quickly as possible. And some of that was because I was 55 years old. Like, I don't have a lot of time to be a college professor.
Is that right?
Yeah. So, I can look back and just see God's hand all the way through. If I wasn't going to be a missionary, I was going to be a teacher. I knew that involved college. That scared me to death as a teenager. And here now I'm training teachers. So to see the hand of God on my life is pretty amazing.
Going full circle in places that you would not have thought you would go.
Exactly.
Was that move that you made from West Africa, working in missions with missionary kids, back to the U.S., was that a hard one? Like, in what ways was there any kind of step of faith in doing that?
Well, it was a pretty huge step of faith to go to West Africa. We were married, 4 daughters. Our youngest was 2 months old. Our oldest was 7. Wow. There were 2 in between. And, we went very under-supported. We were young and dumb and just believed God could do anything, and He can, and He did. It wasn't a careless attitude, but it was just, God wants us to do this. He'll provide and make a way. And our ministry was to go learn French and then work at a school for missionaries children and actually be the school administrator and get it going in greater ways than it was. It was very early days of beginning. And I had just graduated with my undergrad in teacher education, so I didn't have a lot of experience.
This was a
And to
big
see God
step.
do all that, was just really, really incredible. And to see what we're able to do for families to really meet the needs of their children and their educational needs. So to leave that kind of life and enter public education in the United States was something I really never thought I would do. I wasn't I wasn't opposed. It just wasn't on my radar. And God clearly gave direction that this is where I want you to be, and opened a job I didn't even know existed for me. And just had to work through some of the complications of that and get licensure and, all of those things, take some more classes. And God orchestrated every part of that. It was unbelievable.
Mm. So, how long were you there in West Africa?
We were there 8 years, and then we spent a year in Papua New Guinea.
My goodness, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, sounds like more the step of faith was going there, and then God sort of paved the way to make it smoothly to when he wanted you to come back. So
Right.
it's great how he did that.
Yeah.
Was there anything you learned as a child about Jesus or appreciated about Jesus or where you saw God work that really helped carry you through later in your relationship with Jesus?
My childhood fear of God, he would, and that was kind of implanted in me by family, but more so by my church that I grew up in.
What do you mean by fear?
Not that God was out to get me, but you better be careful. Like, you got to toe the line, live the list. There's these things you do and there's things you don't do, and you better never do those things on that don't do list kind of a thing. And that
Okay.
was kind of the upbringing. So there was this fear of God that, do the wrong thing and he'll get you kind of a thing. Um, and it wasn't like super heavy in my life, but it was always there. Now it kept me from doing some things, and I'm very thankful for that. That reverence, now that I look back and can refer to it as that, really kept me from doing some things that just would not have been healthy, good choices. Um, Fast forward, I think, as I've thought about this question a little bit, um, I think it was reading Francis Chan's Crazy Love for the first time, that
Yeah.
I really came to understand God loves me. Like, He is not out to get me. Um, he always has good planned for me. He always wants good things for me. Um, and my life will be blessed as I follow Him and walk in His ways. And as a father, He corrects me, right? He redirects when I go the wrong way and do the wrong things. But He loves me in spite of all that. In fact, loved me before I was even a child of His, right? Scripture tells us that He loved us even when we were enemies with Him. I mean, that's love. That is deep
Mm.
love. And I love, Chan's like take on it. That's crazy love. It really is.
Hmm.
And when I came to understand that, and have come to understand it more since that first reading, I think that's been one of the greatest parts of my life.
Mm. So that's encouragement to me. I think a lot of us Christians will feel like we're always disappointing God, and we
Mm.
might not say we're afraid of God, but in some ways, we're really not experiencing His love for us. And I think for a lot of faculty, where there's a lot of pressure
Mm.
in the workplace,
Absolutely.
that maybe they put some pressure on themselves. So that's a good word. Thanks for sharing. about how God is leading you more into his love there. Well, one of my favorite things when we start talking about your ministry on campus, what you've seen God do on campus, I love bringing in these questions from college students.
Mhm.
So I have a question for you that's from Rachel Ward. Take a listen to her question.
My name's Rachel Ward. I go to UNCW. I'm a freshman studying nursing. My question would be, how do you be bold in your faith while still respecting the legalities of being a professor and honoring different people's worldviews?
Rachel, great question. I love the fact that you're a nursing student. You'll be in the people helping profession, making a difference in their lives. I loved your question. How do I and others as Christian professors boldly live out our faith, but also respect the constraints that we live under at a university legally? For me, as a new professor, I was a little older in my life when I started. And I guess I didn't know better, to be honest. I was going to live out my faith regardless, because I always had. Didn't matter where I was living or working, I had always lived out my faith as boldly as I could. Folks that I worked with, regardless of where it was, knew that I was a Jesus follower. That was important to me because that's who I am. It's not just part of my life. And so when I moved into the professor world, the university world, I just did the same. And then thankfully, I came across Faculty Commons, and Dennis Beck, one of the folks that works with Faculty Commons, and he shared, and others, at a common call that I went to as a young professor in my career, anyway, being young. And we were challenged there to open any new class with the statement of something like, my name is Dr. Kemp. I'm going to be your professor this semester. A little about me. I'm a Jesus follower. And what that means is I depend on him for every aspect of my life. He is my guide. He's my savior. He is my protector. He's my provider. He's my shepherd. Because of that, those things are true in my life, and as I live that out, I hope you see that I treat you differently maybe than you've been treated by some others in your life. And so if you have any questions about that, I'd love to sit and talk with you. So the next opportunity, that's what I did. And I've done it ever since. And even when I have, because we're a small university, even when I have some of the same students in my class for a consecutive semester or more, I always start that way. Just recently, this semester, I had some brand new students in my course, and 3 or 4 of those students responded back to me in writing like, I so appreciate your love for Jesus and the fact that you're willing to put it out there and live that way as a professor, and I really admire that. So
wow, 3 or 4.
Students are listening. Students are really listening. So for the professors that are watching this, and particularly the young professors, be bold. We're told in the Word to be bold in our faith and put it out there that you're a Jesus follower and what that means and why that will make a difference in your students' lives. They're listening and they will respond and they will respect you and even come to you with questions.
So, Charles, you were talking about the fear of God, and I think a lot of faculty will have the fear of their chair or the fear of administration. Can you talk some about what are real risks with letting your students know you're a Christian and what maybe are imaginated fears?
Well, I think, sadly, too many of us as professors believe that we can't say anything. You can't mix church and state, so to speak. You can't talk about your faith. It'll be misconceived as proselytizing, and that's not the case. I've not found that to be the case. And as I've challenged other professors to do the same, they've not found it. And I've listened to other folks in other universities. When you're introducing yourself to your students, who you are is who you are. And if you're a Jesus follower, that's who you are. And you're free to talk about that, as we should. As I come across aspects in my reading, I'll bring that in at the start of the class. Hey, how are we doing today? How are we doing this week? Some of my students are student teaching. How is it going in the field? And get a little feedback from them. And then I share, for me, I came across this part of my reading this week, and it really challenged me. And I'll just share the verse with them. And
Would be a Bible reading?
yeah, like in my Bible reading.
Awesome.
And so I just share the verse, and I said, this verse really challenged me this week. And I don't know where you are in your faith, but for me in my faith, it really challenged me. And I just wanted you to know that. And then we move on to the objectives for the day. And so I think we can be much more vocal about it when we're talking about us. And it would be wrong of me to try to convince and convert my students in class. Like, there's a rightful platform that I have as a professor, but I don't get that right to be able to preach at them. I think there's ways that we can integrate our faith and be bold about it and talk about it in very natural ways. Heather Holleman talks about it in her book, Grander Story, and how she just integrates what she's reading into her classes. And it was a real challenge for me. Like, it really challenged me. And I just began asking God, can you show me ways I can do that? Because what we know is the word is powerful and it changes lives. And so as I put it out there, I just let God do his work.
That's encouraging. Yeah, Heather Holleman, one thing that I appreciate about her is she talks to non-believers like she talks to her believing friends. She'll tell them, let me tell you something I was praying about, and God answered this way. And I love that kind of transparency and not being one person within one and one with another. So, all right, so Charles, let's double click on this some more. Some faculty, some Christian faculty would say, I'm not comfortable letting my students know I'm a Christian the same way I'm not comfortable letting them know what political party I affiliate with. But what you've described is that you share that you're a Christian because this is more your identity. This is like who you are. Can you talk more about how that makes a difference, really expressing to your students your Christianity based on your identity?
Sure. So one of the other things that I tell them as I introduce myself is I've been married now almost 47 years. Well, that kind of rattles some of my students, and I've even seen them like whisper to their partner, like, my parents aren't even that old, right?
Right.
So for them to have somebody, to know somebody that's been married that long to the same person, also opens up doors of opportunity, right? Because I've had 2 or 3 students who are maybe engaged to get married, and they're going to graduate and then get married. And I've had 2 or 3 of them say, Dr. Kemp, you've been married to Sue, who they meet in my home. You've been married to her for more than 45 years. Like, how's that been possible? Give me some secrets. So that's who I am, right? I'm married to my wife. And I'm a Jesus follower. It's who I am. It's my identity. Like, that's how I identify. I'm a Jesus follower. And so I just naturally talk about what that looks like. I've had the opportunity to go to a couple faculty commons gatherings, and I talk about that because one of the things that I really work with my students is self-care and taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of those to whom we've been entrusted. And so I'll tell them, hey, class is going to be online next week. I'm going to a meetup with a bunch of other Christian professors who are going to speak into my life and encourage me and strengthen me so that I can be a better professor, because I need that for self-care. And so I just tell them what's going on in my life, because we want to know what's going on in theirs. I think it's only right that they know some things that's going on in my life. And as I've opened up that way, it's then created opportunities for them to come, stop by the office and say, hey, Dr. Kemp, I got a question. You got a minute, and so I think, letting them know this is who I am. I'm also a professor, and what that means is I've got some experience that I hope can be beneficial in your life, to make you a great teacher. In my case, in being teacher preparation program. And so I think, whether you're a chemist or you're a biologist or you're an English teacher, that's also, that's also who you are, and you would impart things that you believe about those, to your students. So I just think it's, and again, I'm at an age where I'm like, okay, I mean, I'll quit or retire, because I have to talk about who I am and who I am as a Jesus follower.
And that does help to have some years behind you rather than the new faculty just
Sure.
trying to make tenure. And
Sure.
But I love what you're saying. Is some of this that you're motivated because of the relationship? Like we speak about things that we care about, closer relationships. So when you're talking about your wife, it's natural to talk about you being married because your love for your wife, this relationship. So is that sort of what you're talking about in your identity in Christ? Like your relationship with him is so important that you share it naturally?
Yeah, I think so. I talk about some of the things as a Jesus follower, like some of the things that I do on a daily basis to be able to deepen my relationship, in my faith. Talk about the fact that I meet with other Christian professors on campus because they help me grow, they develop me, they challenge me. Relationships are really important. And I think if there's one thing that we know about this generation that's sitting in our classes across universities, wherever you are, is that they are longing for community and longing for relationship, and they don't know how to find them, either one of them, well. And I think as we can model that and talk about the community that we have with other Christian professors and the relationship that we have with Jesus, and why that's important to me and why that makes me who I am, I think that gives them opportunity to think about who's community for them and who are they in relationship with, and how could that grow and develop. How could they seek that out to be able to meet that need? Because I think it's a felt need that we all have, and particularly this generation.
Well, let's pause right there. And so Charles was just talking about community, and professors are longing for community also. So if you are a Christian professor on your campus, but you don't know of other Christian professors, I'd encourage you to check out meettheprof.com and see if you find some Christian professors that way on your campus. But also, I'd encourage you to go to facultycommons.com, and there are resources there that may actually connect you with other faculty as well. So thanks for listening to this. And if you please remember to click on subscribe or like or follow, however you're listening or watching this. It doesn't cost anything, but it helps us get the word out to more professors and their students. And stay tuned for next week, where we have part 2 of our interview with Charles Kemp. And you'll especially like the part where he talks about a mission trip he just went on with some other Christian professors, and they connected with professors in Colombia. That's South America, not Columbia, South Carolina. And if you're a college student and you would like to submit a question for professors, you can find us on Instagram at Meet the Prof Official and just send us a DM where you're stating your name, your campus, and what your question would be. And we'd love to have you on the show. And lastly, if you're listening and you'd be interested in supporting our ministry, thank you so much for that. And you can give online securely at give.cru.org/0424344. So until next time, we hope this encourages you to have a Christ-centered conversation on your college campus.